thumb. Jerry John Rawlings is a former head of state and president of Ghana. Rawlings initially came to power in Ghana as a flight lieutenant of the Ghana Air Force following a coup d'etat in 1979 and, after initially handing power over to a civilian government, took back control of the country on the 31st of December 1981 as the chairman of the Provisional National Defence Council. In 1992, Rawlings resigned from the armed forces, founded the National Democratic Congress and became the first president of the Fourth Republic. He was re-elected in 1996 for a further 4 years. He currently serves as the African Union envoy to Somalia. Rawlings attempted a coup d'etat on the 15th of May 1979, leading a group of military personnel in a coup attempt on General Fred Akafo, which resulted in him being arrested, imprisoned and facing a death sentence. However, a speech he gave during his trial resonated with a large section of the public that rose up in his defense. Consequently, on the 4th of June, soldiers sympathetic to his motivations broke him out of jail, and he led a revolt of both the military and civilians which overthrew General Akafo and the Supreme Military Council, effectively leaving him in charge. Rawlings and the soldiers around him formed the Armed Forces Revolutionary Council and conducted what it termed a house-cleaning exercise, whose aim was to purge Ghanaian society of all the corruption and social injustices that they perceived to be at the root of their coup d'etat. The AFRC organized an election and it was won by Hillalimin of the People's National Party. On the 31st of December 1981, Rawlings and together with some soldiers and civilians took advantage of New Year festivities organized by Limin and overthrew the Limin government, citing economic mismanagement. Rawlings then installed the Provisional National Defence Council with himself as the chairman. In 1992, Rawlings retired from the military and set up the National Democratic Congress. He legalized political parties and organized presidential and parliamentary elections, in response to demands for a more democratic process concerning the governing of the country. Rawlings and his party won with 58.3% of the vote, with outside observers declaring the voting to be free and fair. In 1996, Rawlings went on to win a second term as president, after 2 terms in office, barred by his constitution from standing in any election. Rawlings endorsed his vice president John Atta Mills as presidential candidate in 2000. Background: Jerry John Rawlings was born in Accra, Gold Coast, on the 22nd of June 1947, to Victoria Agbotui and James Ramsey John, a chemist from the United Kingdom. Born in Castle Douglas, Scotland, in 1907. Rawlings attended Achi Motor School. Rawlings is married to Nana Kanadu Ajuman. He has 3 daughters: Esnetor Rawlings, Santewa Rawlings, Amina Rawlings, and 1 son, Timothy Rawlings. Military career: in March 1968, he was posted to Takoradi in the Western region to continue his studies. He graduated in January 1969, and was commissioned a pilot officer, winning the coveted Speedbird Trophy as the best cadet in flying and airmanship. He earned the rank of flight lieutenant in April 1978, during his service with the Ghanaian Air Force. Rawlings perceived a deterioration of discipline and morale, reflecting the corruption of the Supreme Military Council at the time. As promotion brought him into contact with the privileged classes and the social values, his view of the injustices in society hardened. He was thus regarded with some unease by the SMC. He read widely and discussed social and political ideas with a growing circle of like-minded friends and colleagues. In May 1979, Rawlings, together with 6 other soldiers, were arrested by the Ghanaian military for a mutiny labeled as a coup attempt on the government of General Fred Akafo. and Rawlings appeared before a general court-martial, charged with leading a squad of soldiers on 15 May 1979. While awaiting his execution, Rawlings was sprung from custody on 4 June 1979 by a group of soldiers. He led the insurgent that ousted the Supreme Military Council from office with Armed Forces Revolutionary Council. On the night of 4 June, lives were lost in both the forces fighting against the military government and those fighting on the side of the insurgency. As one of his first acts in power, Rawlings signed the orders for the execution of a former military president of Ghana who was later executed, Ignatius Kutuakiampong, and Air Vice Marshal Yorba-Uki. 4 other generals, Kote, Joy Amajum, Roger Feli, and Utuka, were also put to death. Rawlings has never denied responsibility for this. The Armed Forces Revolutionary Council, under the military marshal of Rawlings, carried out what Rawlings described as a much wider house-cleaning exercise. Meanwhile, following a program already set in motion before the 4th of June insurgency, on the 24th of September 1979, the AFRC military allowed the governing of the People's National Party under Hilla Liman. Liman's administration was cut short on 31 December 1981, when Rawlings deposed him in another coup. The Provisional National Defence Council, composed of both civilian and soldiers, was established with Rawlings as the chairman. The PNDC, led by Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings, began the process of what Rawlings said to be a decentralization, atrocities, immediately following the overthrow of the Gen. Akufo government. Rawlings and his men embarked on what was termed house cleaning. They immediately tried and executed General Akufo, Gen. Ikeakiampong, and Gen. Afrifa, all former heads of state, who had participated in earlier treasonable coups against former presidents like Nkrumah. Air Vice Marshal Yorba-Uki, General Utuka Amajum, Feli and Kote were also executed for their roles in undermining the image of the military through corrupt acts. The killings of the Supreme Court justices, military officers Major Sam Akwar and Major Dasana Nantogma, and the killings and disappearance of over 300 other Ghanaians occurred at this time in Ghana's history. Post-military. In Jerry John Rawlings' first official speech subsequent to the removal of Hilla Liman, he announced the creation of the National Commission on Democracy, which began decentralization and dissemination. Opposition to the PNDC, with pressure from the United States through the CIA, began demanding a return to multi-party democracy. Although a referendum showed mixed feelings on this, the National Commission on Democracy was put into high gear to begin the process to return to multi-party elections. National Commission for Democracy was empowered to hold debates and formulate some suggestions for a transition to multi-party democracy. Opposition groups complained that the NCD was too closely associated with the PNDC. The Commission continued its work through 1991. In March of that year, the NCD released a report recommending the election of an executive president, the establishment of a National Assembly, and the creation of a prime minister post. The PNDC accepted the report, and the following year it was approved in a referendum. Political parties were legalized by Rawlings, with the provision that none could use names that had been used before, and a timetable was set for presidential and parliamentary elections. When presidential elections were held in 1992, Rawlings stood as the candidate for the National Democratic Congress, the successor party to the PNDC. Although his opponents were given access to television and newspaper coverage, and limits to the freedom of the press had been slightly lifted, no single candidate could match him. Election returns on 3 November 1992 1992 revealed that Rawlings had won 58.3% of the vote, for a landslide victory. Almost immediately, the opposition parties claimed that the presidential election was not fair, and that widespread abuses had occurred. The leaders encouraged the followers to boycott subsequent Ghana parliamentary and presidential elections, with the result that NDC officials won 189 of 200 seats in the parliament. Answering questions about polling place irregularities, he said he will initiate a new voter registration program. Rawlings and the NDC again held on to the Ghana parliament in 1992 and 1996. For his constitutional mandate, Rawlings' term of office ended in 2001. He retired in 2001. Rawlings was succeeded by John Ajikam Kuffuor, his main rival and opponent, in 1996. Kuffuor succeeded in defeating Rawlings's vice president John Atta Mills in 2000. In 2004, Mills conceded to Kuffuor and Kuffuor ran for another 4 years. Post-presidency. In November 2000, Rawlings was named the first International Year of Volunteers 2001 eminent person by UN Secretary-General Kofi Annan, attending various events and conferences to promote volunteerism. In October 2010, Jerry John Rawlings was named African Union Envoy to Somalia. He has given lectures in universities, including at the Oxford University. Jerry John Rawlings has continued his heavy support for NDC. Awards and honors. October 2013, Honorary Degree Doctorate of Letters from the University for Development Studies. This was in recognition of his contribution to the establishment of the university. In 1993, he used his $50,000 Hunger Project cash prize in as seed money to sponsor the establishment of the state-owned university, the first of its kind in the 3 northern regions. October 2013, Global Champion for People's Freedom by the M. Kiva Humanitarian Foundation.